Before we get into this story, if you love Family Feud moments that hit you right in the heart, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to this channel right now. Turn on that notification bell so you never miss a video. Trust me, what you are about to see is something you will not forget. There was a time when a man's word meant everything. When a husband stood by what he promised at the altar, and his family never had to question where his loyalty was. But what happened on Family Feud in January 2025 would test that belief in a way nobody saw coming. When a simple game show question forced one husband to face his deepest secret on live television, he did not just lose a round, he lost his composure, his pride, and nearly his entire family right there on the stage. And when Steve Harvey saw this grown man fall apart in front of 200 people, he stopped everything. Because what Steve did next was not the job of a game show host. It was the duty of a man who understood that some moments are bigger than television. Purpose build deep emotional connection through detailed backstory and generational context. Derek and Angela Mitchell had been married for 17 years. They lived in a 2-story brick house in Memphis, Tennessee, on the same street where Derek had grown up. The house had belonged to Derek's parents before them. His father, James Mitchell, had been a city bus driver for 35 years and had paid off that mortgage one small payment at a time, never missing a single one. When James passed away from cancer 6 years ago, he left the house to Derek with one request. He said, "Take care of this house, take care of your mother, and take care of your family. That is all a man needs to do." Derek had promised, and for a long time, he had kept that promise. Angela was 44 years old. She worked as an office manager at a dental practice in downtown Memphis, the kind of job that did not pay a fortune but gave her steady hours and good insurance for their 2 kids. She was the backbone of the Mitchell household. She managed the bills, packed the lunches, drove the kids to school and to basketball practice, and to church on Sundays. She organized the block party every summer, baked pies for the neighbors at Christmas, and never once complained about any of it. Her friends called her Superwoman, but Angela would just laugh and say she was just a mom trying to keep it all together. Derek was 46. He worked construction, specializing in commercial roofing. It was hard, physical work that wore a man down over the years. His hands were rough and his back ached most mornings, but he took pride in what he did. He was the kind of man who came home tired, ate dinner with his kids, watched the game, and went to bed without much conversation. Angela had gotten used to the silence over the years. She told herself that quiet was just how some men showed love. Their 2 children, 16-year-old Derek Jr. and 13-year-old Maya, were good kids. Derek Jr. played point guard on his high school basketball team and had dreams of playing in college. Maya was an honor roll student who loved painting and had already won 2 art competitions at the state level. Both children adored their father. Even though he was not the most expressive man, they understood him in the way that kids understand the parent who shows love through actions instead of words. Derek never missed a game. He never missed a recital. He was always there, even when he did not say much. The Family Feud appearance had been Angela's idea. She had submitted the application as a surprise for Derek's mother, 72-year-old Dorothy Mitchell, who had been a fan of the show for decades. Dorothy watched Family Feud every single evening at 7 o'clock without fail. She would sit in her recliner, a cup of tea in one hand, and shout answers at the television as if Steve Harvey could hear her. When Angela told her they had been selected, Dorothy cried. She said it was the first time she had felt truly happy since James had passed. She bought a new outfit for the taping, got her hair done, and told everyone at her church that her family was going to be on television with Steve Harvey. What Dorothy did not know, what Angela was only beginning to suspect, and what Derek had been carrying in silence for over 2 years, was a secret that would come crashing out under the studio lights. Derek Mitchell had been gambling. Not a friendly poker night here and there. He had developed a serious addiction to online sports betting that had quietly drained nearly $60,000 from the family's savings, their children's college fund, and even a portion of the equity in the house his father had worked his whole life to pay off, the house that James Mitchell had asked Derek to protect, And on that Family Feud stage, in front of his wife, his mother, his children, and 200 strangers, the truth was about to come out in the worst possible way. Purposely build emotional investment through escalating tension and the devastating reveal. The game begins. The Mitchell family was matched against the Ortega family from El Paso, Texas. The Ortegas were loud, fun, and competitive. They danced when they got points and groaned dramatically when they missed. The audience loved them, but the Mitchells had their own charm. Angela was quick and sharp with her answers. Dorothy, sitting on the far end of the family lineup, got the biggest cheer from the audience when Steve introduced her, and she waved like a queen greeting her subjects. Derek Jr. and Maya were energetic and funny, high-fiving each other after every answer. Derek was quieter than the rest of his family, but he was playing well. He got 2 correct answers in the first round and gave Angela a small, proud nod each time. Steve noticed the dynamic. "Derek, you are a man of few words, I see," Steve joked. Derek smiled. "I let my family do the talking, Steve. I just show up." The audience laughed. Steve pointed at him and said, "Now that is a smart man right there." But behind that quiet exterior, Derek was fighting a battle nobody in that studio could see. Every time a question came up about money, about secrets, about family, his chest tightened a little more. He kept telling himself to stay calm, stay focused, and get through the game. Just get through the game. The question that changed everything. The Mitchells were ahead going into the third round. Angela was on a roll, and the family was loose and confident. Then Steve pulled the next card and read the face-off question. Name something a man might secretly spend money on. Derek was at the podium for the face-off against Carlos Ortega. Carlos buzzed in first and said, "A sports car." Good answer. Number 4 on the board. Then it was Derek's turn, and this is where everything fell apart. Derek froze. Not the normal game show freeze where a person goes blank for a second and then recovers. This was different. His hands gripped the edges of the podium. His jaw tightened. The studio lights felt like they were getting hotter. Steve waited. The audience waited. Angela, standing behind him with the rest of the family, tilted her head slightly. "Derek, you good man?" Steve asked with a light chuckle, trying to keep it casual. Derek's mouth opened, and what came out was barely above a whisper. "Gambling." The board lit up. Number 1 answer. The audience cheered. The Mitchell family cheered. But Derek did not move. He stood there, staring at the board as if it had just accused him of something. And in a way it had. Steve noticed immediately. He had seen every kind of reaction on his show over the years. But something about the way Derek was standing, the way his shoulders had pulled inward, the way his eyes had gone glassy, told Steve this was not about a game show answer. This was about something real. The cracks began to show. The game continued, but Derek was different after that answer. He was distracted. He missed his next 2 answers completely, both times staring at the board with an expression that looked less like concentration and more like guilt. Angela kept glancing at him with growing concern. She put her hand on his arm at one point and whispered, "Are you okay?" He nodded, but he did not look at her. Dorothy noticed too. From her spot at the end of the lineup, the 72-year-old woman was watching her son with the sharp, knowing eyes of a mother who can tell when something is wrong, even when everyone else is fooled. She had seen that look before. She had seen it on her husband James's face years ago when he had been struggling with something he was too proud to talk about. She did not say anything yet, but her hands folded tightly in front of her, and her playful energy from earlier had gone quiet. 2 rounds later, the Mitchells were still leading, but the mood had shifted. The Ortega family could feel it. The audience could feel it. Steve could definitely feel it. And then came another question that hit Derek like a hammer. Steve read it casually, the way he reads every question. Name something a father would be ashamed to tell his kids. Angela buzzed in first and answered, that he lost his job. Number 3 answer. The family celebrated. But when the camera panned to Derek, he was not celebrating. He was standing perfectly still, and there were tears forming in his eyes. Nobody on stage noticed at first. The game was moving fast. But Steve saw it. He always saw it. He paused just for a moment, studied Derek's face, and then made the decision to keep the game going for now. But he filed it away. He knew something was coming. The breaking point: the Mitchells won the game and qualified for fast money. The family erupted in celebration. Maya was jumping up and down. Derek Jr. was pumping his fist. Dorothy was wiping happy tears from her eyes. Angela was beaming. But Derek stood off to the side, clapping mechanically, his smile forced and thin. The weight of what he was carrying was finally becoming too much for him to hide. During the commercial break, as the family prepared for fast money, Derek stepped to the edge of the stage. Several audience members later described what they saw. His hands were shaking. He was breathing hard. Angela came up behind him and put her hand on his back. "Baby, what is wrong? We won. Why do you look like that?" And Derek, standing at the edge of that stage with the lights and cameras all around him, broke. Not in a dramatic television way. In the quiet, devastating way that a man breaks when the guilty he has been carrying finally becomes heavier than his ability to hold it. His knees buckled. He sat down right there on the edge of the stage and put his head in his hands. Angela knelt beside him, her face shifting from concern to fear. "Derek, talk to me. What is going on?" The cameras were not rolling yet, but the studio was quiet enough that people nearby could hear what happened next. Derek looked up at his wife with red, wet eyes and said, "I lost it. I lost the money. All of it. The savings. The kids' college fund. I've been gambling, Angela, for 2 years, and I could not stop. I tried to stop. I swear I tried." Angela's face went through about 5 emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, shock, disbelief, pain, and then a cold, still anger that settled over her features like a mask. She stood up slowly and took a step back from her husband. She did not yell. She did not cry. She just looked at him as if she was seeing a stranger for the first time, and in a voice that was terrifyingly calm, she said, "How much?" It was not a question. It was a demand. Derek could not look at her. "Almost 60,000. Angela's hand went to her mouth. Behind her, Dorothy let out a small, sharp breath. Derek Jr. and Maya stood frozen, not fully understanding what was happening but knowing, the way children always know, that their world had just shifted beneath them. Purpose: Steve's powerful intervention, community response, and the beginning of healing. Steve steps in. The producers were unsure what to do. This was not in any playbook. But Steve Harvey did not hesitate. He walked over to the edge of the stage where Derek was sitting and lowered himself down right beside him, not standing over him, not looking down at him, beside him, eye to eye, man to man. "Derek," Steve said, his voice quiet enough that only the closest microphones could pick it up. "Look at me." Derek raised his head slowly. His face was a mess of tears and shame. Steve looked at him with an expression that was not judgment. It was recognition. The look of a man who understood failure from the inside. "I am going to tell you something that I do not share very often," Steve said. "There was a time in my life when I was homeless. I was living out of my car. I had made decisions that cost me everything, and the hardest part was not the losing. It was the looking into the eyes of people who trusted me and knowing that I had let them down. I know that feeling, Derek. I know exactly where you are sitting right now." The studio had gone completely silent. The audience was leaning forward in their seats. Nobody was whispering. Nobody was on their phone. Every single person in that room was locked into what was happening on that stage. Steve continued, "But here is what I also know. The moment you just had, the moment you told the truth, that was not weakness. That was the first real strength you have shown in 2 years. Because hiding is easy. Lying is easy. Telling the truth when you know it is going to hurt the people you love, that takes everything a man has got." Derek was sobbing now, not quietly. Deep, hiving sobs that came from somewhere so far inside him that it sounded like they had been trapped there for a very long time. Steve put a hand on his shoulder and let him cry. He did not rush him. He did not look at the cameras. He just sat there with a broken man and let him have the moment he needed. Dorothy's words. And then Dorothy Mitchell did what mothers do. She walked over to her son, and the audience parted with their emotions for her the way the sea had parted in the Bible. This 72-year-old woman, who had been so excited to be on television just an hour ago, knelt down in front of her grown son and took his hands in hers. Her knees were bad. Everybody could tell it hurt her to kneel. But she did it anyway, because that is what a mother does when her child is suffering. Derek James Mitchell, she said, using his full name the way mothers do when they mean business. Your father left you that house because he trusted you. And right now, you have broken that trust. I am not going to pretend that does not hurt me, because it does. Derek's face crumbled even further. But Dorothy was not finished. But your father also taught you something else. He taught you that a real man is not a man who never falls. A real man is the one who gets up, tells the truth, and does the work to make it right. Your daddy fell plenty of times, son. But he always got back up, and that is what you are going to do. You hear me? Derek nodded, unable to speak. Dorothy pulled him into a hug and the audience broke. People were crying openly. Men and women both. Steve Harvey had tears running down his face and did not even try to wipe them away. It was the kind of moment that reminded everyone in that studio what family really means. Not perfection. Not pretending. Family means showing up even when someone has let you down and saying, I am hurt, but I am still here. Angela's response. Angela had been standing apart from the family during all of this. Her arms were crossed, her jaw tight. She was angry. She had every right to be angry. 17 years of marriage and her husband had been hiding a devastating secret for two of them. Their children's future had been gambled away, literally, without her knowledge or consent. Nobody would have blamed her for walking off that stage and never looking back. Steve walked over to her. He did not tell her what to do. He did not ask her to forgive. He just said, Angela, whatever you are feeling right now is valid. Every single bit of it. You do not owe anybody a reaction that is not real. If you are angry, be angry. If you need space, take it. But I want you to know that what your husband just did, coming clean in the hardest possible way, that does not fix anything. But it is the first step, and you get to decide what happens next. Nobody else. Angela looked at Steve for a long time. Then she looked at Derek, still sitting on the edge of the stage with his mother's arms around him. She looked at her children, who were standing together, Derek Jr.'s arm around Maya's shoulders, both of them watching their parents with wide, uncertain eyes, and Angela said something that nobody expected. I am not going to make a decision about my marriage on a game show stage. That is not how we do things in our family. We are going to go home, and we are going to deal with this. But I need you to hear me, Derek. She paused. This is your one chance. You get help, real help, or I am gone, and I am taking those kids with me. It was not a dramatic speech. It was not a forgiving embrace. It was something better. It was a real woman making a real decision with real conditions. The audience did not cheer. They did not clap, they nodded, because what Angela just did was something every grown person in that room understood. She drew a line, and she drew it with absolute clarity. Steve's promise. Steve addressed the audience and the cameras directly. Ladies and gentlemen, what you just witnessed is not entertainment. This is real life, and I want to take a moment to talk about something that does not get talked about enough. Gambling addiction is real. It destroys families. It destroys men who are otherwise good men, fathers, husbands, providers, and it thrives in silence. What Derek did today, breaking that silence, it may have been the most courageous thing I have ever seen on this stage. He turned to Derek. Derek, I am going to make you a promise. My foundation is going to connect you with the best addiction counseling program we can find. That is not charity. That is what men do for each other when one of us is struggling. You are not alone in this, brother. Then Steve looked directly into the camera. And if there is anyone out there watching this who is hiding the same thing, who is gambling in secret, who is watching their family's future disappear one bet at a time, hear me, it is not too late. But the hiding has to stop. Today, right now, because the truth will come out, it always does. And it is better to be the one who tells it than to be the one who gets caught. Purpose. Reinforce moral lesson, show lasting impact, and deliver universal wisdom. The episode airs. The Mitchell family did not play fast money that day. Steve offered them the option and Angela respectfully declined. She said the money was not important right now. What was important was getting her family home and starting the hard work of putting things back together. Steve respected her decision completely and personally walked the family to their car after the taping, shaking Derek's hand and telling him, "The hard part is not over. It is just beginning. But you can do it." When the episode aired 6 weeks later, the response was unlike anything the show had seen in years. The clip of Derek's breakdown and Steve's response went viral within hours. It was shared over 3 million times in the first week. But it was not the drama that people were responding to. It was the honesty. In a world of manufactured reality television moments, this was painfully, beautifully real. Addiction counselors across the country shared the clip with their patients. Churches played it during sermons about honesty and redemption. Men's groups used it as a conversation starter about the secrets they were carrying. The National Council on Problem Gambling reported a 40% increase in calls to their helpline in the week following the episode. They credited the Mitchell family's story with breaking through the stigma that prevents so many people from seeking help. Derek's willingness to fall apart on national television had given other men permission to admit that they were struggling too. The road to recovery. True to his word, Steve Harvey's foundation connected Derek with a top addiction counseling program in Memphis. Derek started attending meetings 3 times a week. He got a sponsor. He deleted every betting app from his phone. And most importantly, he opened up to Angela completely, giving her full access to every account, every statement, every detail of the financial damage he had caused. It was ugly. The numbers were devastating. But Angela said that the transparency, as painful as it was the first time in years she felt like she was actually in a real marriage instead of a performance. Angela did not leave. She made that clear to everyone who asked. But she also made clear that staying was not the same as forgetting. She started attending a support group for spouses of people with gambling addiction. She went to therapy on her own, and she told Derek every single day for the first 3 months that she was choosing to stay, not because she had to, but because she believed he was doing the work. She said that if the work ever stopped, she would stop choosing to stay. It was the most honest arrangement either of them had ever had in their marriage, and strangely, it made them closer than they had been in years. The follow-up 6 months after the episode, Family Feud aired a follow-up segment. Steve Harvey introduced it by telling the audience that this was the update he had been waiting for all year. The segment opened with footage from that day, Derek sitting on the edge of the stage, Dorothy kneeling in front of him, Angela drawing her line, and then the screen cut to the present day. Derek appeared on camera looking like a different man, not in a dramatic Hollywood makeover way, in a quieter way. He looked lighter, his eyes were clear, his posture was straight. He spoke directly to the camera and said, "6 months ago, I was the most ashamed I have ever been in my life. I sat on that stage and told the truth for the first time in 2 years, and it nearly destroyed me, but it also saved me. Because once the truth was out, I had no more reason to hide. And once I stopped hiding, I could finally start healing." He shared that he had been attending counseling consistently, had not placed a single bet in 6 months, and was working with a financial advisor to rebuild the family savings. It would take years to recover what he had lost. He knew that. But he said the money was not the point. The point was that his children could look at him again without that confusion in their eyes. The point was that his wife had chosen to stay and fight alongside him instead of giving up. The point was that his mother could be proud of him again. Angela appeared beside him in the segment. She was honest, as always. She said the past 6 months had been the hardest of her life, harder even than the moment she found out, because rebuilding trust was not a single event, it was a daily choice. She said there were mornings she woke up angry and evenings she went to bed grateful, sometimes on the same day. But she also said something that resonated with millions of viewers. She said, "Marriage is not a fairy tale. It is a commitment. And commitment means staying at the table even when you want to flip it over, not because the other person deserves it, but because the life you built together is worth fighting for." Dorothy had the final word in the segment. She looked into the camera with those sharp, knowing eyes and said, "My husband James used to say that a house is only as strong as its foundation. This family's foundation cracked, but we did not let it crumble. We got down on our knees and we patched it. and now it is stronger than before because it is made of truth instead of secrets. Steve Harvey, watching the segment with his studio audience, wiped his eyes and said, "That woman right there. Miss Dorothy. She is the reason I still believe in families." The lasting impact. 1 year after the episode, Derek began speaking publicly about gambling addiction. He partnered with local organizations in Memphis to raise awareness and started visiting high schools to talk to young men about the dangers of online betting, which had become an epidemic among young people. He told them his story without shame, without excuses. He told them about losing $60,000, about almost losing his family, and about sitting on a game show stage while his world fell apart. And then he told them about getting help, about doing the work, and about the slow, painful, beautiful process of earning back the trust of the people he loved. Angela continued her support group work and eventually co-authored an article with a therapist about the impact of financial secrets on marriages. The article was published in a national magazine and was read by over 1 million people. She received hundreds of letters from women who said her story had given them the courage to confront similar situations in their own relationships. She answered every single one. Steve Harvey dedicated a segment on his talk show to gambling addiction awareness, featuring Derek and Angela as guests. During that appearance, Steve revealed something that surprised everyone. He said that after the Mitchell episode, he had received more mail from viewers than from any other episode in the show's history. Most of the letters were from men who were hiding gambling problems, men who were hiding financial failures, men who were carrying secrets that were eating them alive. Steve read a few of the letters on air, with permission, and each one was a variation of the same theme. A man saw Derek break down on television and realized that he was looking at himself. Steve closed the segment with words that became one of his most shared quotes. "We teach men that strength means silence, that a real man holds it in, that you do not show weakness. And then we wonder why men break." Derek Mitchell did not break because he was weak. He broke because he was strong enough to stop pretending, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the kind of strength we should be teaching our sons. The Mitchell family never did play fast money. They never won the $20,000 prize. But what they gained was something no game show could ever award them. They gained the truth. They gained a second chance. And they gained the knowledge that even when a family breaks, it can be put back together if every person at the table is willing to do the work. Derek often said that the worst day of his life was the best thing that ever happened to him. The day he broke in front of the whole world was the day he finally started to become whole. Hey KL2 ACDION. Silosagi, if this story moved you, if Derek's courage and this family's strength inspired you, then please hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it is okay to ask for help. We bring you stories like this every single week, real moments of truth, family, and redemption from the Family Feud stage. And remember what Dorothy taught us today: a house is only as strong as its foundation, so build yours on truth. See you in the next one.